Hi, Hi everyone. Um, Today I wanted to talk about Paradise, um, by Abdulrazak Gurnah. Oh my god, sorry about that. Um, this book I was assigned to read for class, and I read it while on vacation for like 5 days, and I drank this novel up. It was one of those books that like to begin, you kind of gotta like dip your feet into the water, but then the water gets warm and you don't want to come out. Um, and you don't want to come out, period. But then the waves start getting big and you have to come out. That's exactly what I was feeling like in this book. So I was reading reviews for this book, and I feel like some people just don't understand the significance of it because they don't know like the history behind it, the motivations for writing it. They just see it and want a Nobel Prize and like, oh, it has to be a good book without really understanding the depth that this novel takes us. Oh my god. Oh my god. Um so spoiler alert. I'm gonna be spoiling this entire thing. I just wanted to talk about it. Um and I apologize if I don't pronounce these names correctly because they are like Arabic, and I'm not familiar with Arabic speaking anything. I'm not familiar with Islam. So please forgive me, and I just want to give a disclaimer before. Um so this book follows the tale of Yusuf. And Yusuf is 12 years old and he's pawned off to this merchant, this Muslim merchant, in Africa. I believe they're in Tanzania, but around maybe like Zanzibar because the author Gurnah is from Zanzibar. So around Zanzibar, basically on the East African coast, that's where they're at. And Uncle Aziz is Uncle is Yusuf is who Yusuf is pawned off to, this merchant. Yusuf is 12 when he first gets pawned off, and by the end of the novel, they're not clear on his age, but he's definitely approaching his 20s, if not already in his 20s. And Yusuf is beautiful. Now, if you're Muslim, you probably know the Yusuf I'm talking about, but I didn't. Yusuf is a prophet, and I'm gonna link his video down below. But Dr. Raja, he educated me so much on like this lore because I had no idea. But Yusuf is a prophet. I think his name in the Christian text is Joseph, but like in the Quran, it's Yusuf. I think that's what I'm kind of understanding. But one thing I didn't know either is each prophet has a defining aspect. I think Jesus had his voice, and Yusuf had his beauty. Throughout this novel, they keep saying how beautiful Yusuf is, how beautiful Yusuf is. And I literally wrote, in my initial reflections, I'm trying to see. I literally wrote, this book just seems to be about pretty privilege. Like, why do they keep mentioning um his looks? But it's because Yusuf represents the prophet who is beautiful. But anyways, Yusuf goes on this journey with Uncle Aziz. First, he stays with the shopkeeper Khalil, and Khalil kind of shows him the world, like the world that he's exposed to now. Like when Khalil first met Yusuf, and Yusuf would be like Uncle Aziz, the merchant. Khalil said, first of all, that ain't your uncle, and that's kind of the beginning of when Yusuf, he's 12, understands what's going on in his life and the social position he's in his life. So yeah, he stays at the shop with Khalil next to Uncle Aziz's house, but then he goes away for like a year with another shopkeeper a little further named Hamid. Hamid or Hamid. And there, that's where he learns. Hamid finds out that Yusuf doesn't even know how to read and how to say like the Islamic prayers. So he sends Yusuf to school. He shames him first. He shames him first for being a Muslim and be like, you don't even know. But then he sends him to school, and that's where Yusuf kind of learns God and all of that. Peace be unto him. But so after he stays with, while he's at this Hamid's place, he meets Kalasinga, who is an Indian man. And Kalasinga is one of the only, not one of the only, like in this book there's Muslims, there's traditional, what do they call them, polytheists, traditional religious beliefs, and then there's Kalasinga, who's sick. He's sick. But I believe like on his altar he has like all the gods on his altar, because he's just like, he kind of understands, or not understand, or has like a knowing of different religions. Anyways, Kalasinga is an interesting character because he's a character of critique. Critique against Islam specifically, because he says how like this paradise you guys speak of in Islam sounds like India with all its lush gardens. Like, y'all sure that ain't India? And he's like, I'm gonna translate the Quran so you guys can really know what they're saying. And that's, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind, because they try. Okay, so after Yusuf is with the shopkeeper Hamid and Kalasinga, he goes on a journey with Uncle Aziz to make the biggest trade they're ever gonna do. So it's like an army of like 40 plus of them, I don't even know. They have to travel in the interior of Tanzania to like trade. And while they're traveling in the interior, the natural environment is ruthless. People are dying from disease, they're getting sick, the waters are almost taking them out. Like, nature is like, fuck you. And it's not only nature, it's also the villages that they have to pass through and pay tribute to get to like the other, where they need to be. And some of the chiefs are cool, some of them are little, and some of them are so Yusuf kind of sees how like troubling it is to be a merchant and how it's not easy work. And he kind of learns about the people on the interior, and there's this whole like one of the traveling themes in this book is like this idea of the savage. Like, those people in the interior, they're savages, they're heathens, they think everything is a bad omen, like, you know, like, and this is coming from the Muslim population. They're speaking about people from the interior, not only the Muslim, maybe Kalasinga, who knows, but they're speaking of these traditionalists as heathens, as savages. Also in this book is this impending doom of the German colonialist expenditure in the back. And this is the first material that I really consumed that stuck with me, that I finally understand what Africans thought of Europeans. Because like, that was something that I had in my head. Like, we always hear about what Europeans thought of Africans, that they're this and that and this, but I'm like, what did Africans think of Europeans? And in this book, it was interesting. They say like, is it true you guys eat metal? Smoke comes out your ears, hair grows out your ears. Like, it's almost as if these Europeans are like not of this world, you know? I don't want to say godly, but godly in the sense that they're not of this world. Like, they're more than human, the way they describe these Europeans. And I think that's interesting, because there seems to be an awareness, because this is after the transatlantic slave trade, and this is like the beginning of colonialism and imperialism. But there seems to be an awareness of what the Europeans are doing, and that nobody is safe. They be saying like they're gonna take your land next, they're gonna take you next, and that's kind of the talk around Africa or Tanzania at this point. They kind of know what the Europeans are doing, and it kind of feels like that's terrible, but they're gonna come and be heathens onto us, kind of thing. Kind of like they accepted it. I don't want to say things that will get me in trouble, but like, it was just, maybe it's because I'm looking as an outsider. I'm looking top down. Maybe that's what it is. But anyways, there seems to be like this knowingness of this impending doom from the Europeans. And so while Yusuf is traveling on the interior with Uncle Aziz and everybody else, there was this one chief who was giving them more than a difficult time and took all of their trading goods. And then the Europeans came to their town, to that village, and Uncle Aziz went to the Germans and was like, yo, he took all our stuff, tell him to give it back to us. And the Germans did just that. The Germans literally said, how dare you steal that man's stuff? Okay, not literally, but the Germans said, how dare you steal his stuff? Do you know the laws of the government? And literally the chief is like, who the fuck is the government? Like, in his town, he's the government. So he's like, who the fuck is the government? But like, he was scared by that threat, because there's also this understanding that like, that law that the Europeans follow is no joke. Like, they will shackle you up. And maybe it's like the slave trade and how they treated the enslaved people. Like, I don't know. But even the chief was scared of the government, the European government. And that was kind of new to me. Okay. So there was that example of Uncle Aziz siding with the Europeans. Anyways, they get out. They took this long trip into the interior. They lost lives were lost in this journey, and it was not a fruitful journey. They had to turn back because, you know, that chief they were having a hard time at, the Europeans were already there, so that means if they went any further, the Europeans would cut them out. So they had to go back. They went back, and this is the final part of the novel. Sorry guys, let me water break. This is the final part of the novel, where Yusuf, he goes back with Khalil in the shop in Uncle Aziz's house, and Uncle Aziz has two wives. He has Khalil's adopted sister as a wife, who's younger, and then he has the mistress who's older than him. And the mistress is like, she's powerful. She's a powerful woman. She has money. But she also has this mark on her face where she doesn't come outside. She's very like isolated. And so Uncle Aziz also has this garden. And Yusuf loves the garden. The garden is paradise to him. And the mistress sees him in the garden, and she's like, she saw him since the beginning, since he was 12. But at this point, he's older. She's like, I need him to come say a prayer for me, because he could save this mark on my face. He could save me. Like, I need him. And Khalil is totally against it. He's like, he's gonna get in so much trouble when the master comes, But Yusuf ends up going, saying his prayer for the mistress, because inside the house is also Amina, Khalil's sister, and also Uncle Aziz's second wife. And Yusuf he's just like very, people say it's love. That shit ain't love. He's very infatuated with Amina. And he only goes in the house for the mistress, for Amina. And he even tells Amina, I want to run away with you. But she was like, are you mad? Where will we go? And this is a conversation even with when Uncle Aziz married Amina, Khalil's sister. He set Khalil free. Like, you're not in debt to me anymore. But Khalil said, where else will he go? His dad died. His mother and his other sister, I think, went back to Arabia after his dad died. And he was pawned off. So he was like, my sister's here. Where else will I go? And like Yusuf was kind of like what? And then another example of, I'm going to get into it, is there's a gardener who takes care of the garden. And he finds out that he was also a slave. And the mistress set him free as well. But he still was in the tethering to the garden. And he said, what else would I do? I always had my freedom. My freedom is me waking up every day and tending to the garden. Like, and then Yusuf was still like, Yusuf, in this book, we don't get too much of his desires, his wants, other than there was a time when he was at that dangerous chief's house, and that's where he got action for the first time. And since he got action like that, that's why when he's seen Amina some time later, all he's thinking about is, because, yeah, like, that's the only, I feel like, solid thing, emotion I get out of Yusuf is that desire. But Yusuf is quiet. He has nightmares often throughout the dream. And people look at him with some sort of regard. Like, something about him is just like, it's his good looks, but it's also maybe something else. But yeah, so Yusuf is like asking these questions, like, why would you stay in this kind of service? Like, he's trying to understand, and like, he wants to run away with Amina, and she's another one that tells him, where will we go? So at the end of the novel, basically, well, maybe I shouldn't skip over this part. So like I said, the mistress really wants Yusuf. He goes inside, says her prayer, and it gets to the point where like she wants him sexually, and he doesn't want that. So he turns around to leave, like walk away from her, and she grabs the back of his shirt and like rips his shirt. And so when Uncle Aziz comes back and he finds out, and like the mistress is blaming Yusuf, saying that Yusuf tried something to her, Yusuf said, look at the back of my shirt. How could I have been doing anything? Like, I was the one walking away from her. How could the back of my shirt be turned if my back wasn't turned, you know? And Uncle Aziz believes him. And the same time this is going on, the next day or maybe, the Germans come. And Khalil and Yusuf close up shop, and they're hiding in the shop waiting for the Germans to leave. When the Germans find, I don't know how long, like, you're not clear on time. I don't know if they were there for some days, months, like, I don't know. The Germans finally leave. Yusuf comes out of the lock shop, and he goes into the garden, and in the garden, or outside of the garden, he sees dogs eating their own poop. And he's seen this before, dogs eating poop, and he says, this dog recognizes me as one of its own. Like, that he would eat shit one day. And then, like, as he has this realization, he hears the garden door locking. So he's locked out. And at the end of the novel, Yusuf sees the German soldiers, like, they went away. He still sees them, and he runs towards them. And that's the end of the novel. That's the end of the novel. So let me tell you guys my initial, because I had to write it down. These were the glaring themes that I understood. European imperialism and Africans' perceptions, this whole debate on savage versus civilized, through religion, ritual, superstition, the value of trade, hints of slave trade pawning, and what it means to be sold and have freedom. Also, like, the African landscape, how kind of unfair it could be at times. The organization of power and chiefdom, villages, tributes, that whole customary thing. Being a merchant is not easy work. So this is what I said. Okay, but Yusuf, we met him when he was 12, now perhaps in his 20s. He was a quiet character throughout the book. Otherwise, when he spoke about women, lol. I feel like his main attribute was that he was a handsome dreamer. That was about it. Was he a prophet? I'm so like, I don't even understand the end. Like, he chased after the soldiers. What does that mean? He was going to serve himself as a slave? Because that's all he really knew. The dogs eating shit, they recognized one. The gardener saying his freedom in his work. Khalil saying his honor is to be with his sister. And Yusuf wanting to run away. Perhaps it's the lack of resistance the author wanted to touch on. Reminds me of White Tiger when he said people are born believing that they are there to serve others. Then talking about Europeans, there's this tone of means beyond their control, as if what's happening was faith. European as a higher monster, a devil whose game they are pawns of. Like Cheap Chatu, the Europeans commanded him and obeyed. And he obeyed. Was it their guns? Their audacity? They traded with the same Europeans. How did these perceptions shift? The garden door bolting behind him. Did Khalil do that? The master? That ain't your uncle. No one can be trusted, perhaps. The garden was not his paradise. Wow, that was kind of really good. That was a really good summary. And it's so crazy how many things I kind of touched on, but I didn't understand quite fully. Yusuf is a prophet in the Quran. Oh, I said this already. I didn't know that. And like, what does that mean for this story? It just adds a layer of depth to it. I'm not sure. The ending of the book with the whole mistress thing, when I was reading it, I was kind of confused. Because I knew the end was coming, but I was kind of confused. What purpose did it serve? Because for me, it was like a plot device for Amina. But he could have done all of that with Amina without the mistress there. So personally, I would like a little bit more contextualization for that. But like I said, I watched Dr. Raj's video and he said it quite clearly that this whole idea of like who's a savage and who's not is very interesting, because the way the Arabs were talking about the Africans from the interior was the same way Europeans would talk about Africans. And Dr. Raja said you see the nuances of colonialism and colonial thinking. And I think that's true. Uncle Aziz going to the Germans to help because the Germans had such authority. Oh, Dr. Roger was saying this, or maybe like just like how the Germans and Uncle Aziz worked together because they spoke the same language of trade and wealth and property. And Dr. Raja, because he's a professor, he's a scholar in like post-colonial studies, so he knows about like colonialism is this shit. And he was kind of saying how like certain peoples would side with the colonial power because it served them it gave them some type of authority, control, X, Y, and Z. And it was kind of beneficial to side with them. Which is, I'm thinking, is it because Europeans were so outrageous in their ways that people really just, I don't know. Like, what made them trust Europeans? And like I said, I'm looking top down. Because colonialism, I kind of said it, I didn't say it, but in my little book I wrote how, like, I kind of distanced myself from the violence of colonialism. Cuz, like, since I'm not living it in the same form as it was in the past, the death, the trauma, the X, Y, and Z that came with it, I'm distanced from it. So, like, when I read a book like this and I'm kind of immersed in certain forms of violence throughout, like, I don't know, that's the power of, like, literature, is that it can give you a taste of something you never experienced before, and it is in a different kind of, like, I can't put myself fully in other people's shoes, but I have some type of, like, inkling towards it. More than an inkling, even. I'm getting tired, but I think I got most things out. Ugh. I feel like I could say more. We just need to ask the right questions. Um, I hope you guys enjoy this. I hope somebody watches this. No. Hope I enjoyed this. Okay. Peace out.